I'm just switching the recording on because I want to stay anonymous on the recording. So those listening, I'll just give you my initials. They are AH. But yeah, it's just a choice and I prefer to keep myself anonymous in that sense. Thank you so much for your share. I got so much out of it. And I remember listening to you in meetings, you know, when that happened with your dad and he passed away and like you were really fighting for your recovery and staying in and allowing yourself to be held. And I think there's something about that is just allowing yourself to be held by other recovering addicts in this fellowship. Like you kind of have to allow it in. And if you don't, people just, they hold you. You get held here. Like you get held if you allow yourself to be held. And that has definitely been my experience. And it's lovely sitting here with babies and parents and, people in recovery. And, that it just warms my heart. And I had... and I was thinking about it, coming to this meeting and, I had a commitment here for like 3 years running when it was, I don't know, probably from its second year to its, I don't know, but I started coming to this meeting quite early on. I think it was still in its first year when it had started up here and I came here and I was terrified because the room was packed. There were loads of people and I was like, oh my God, it was like, you stop using and it's like it's sensory overload and people like the camaraderie and everyone was talking. I was like, oh my God, this is bonkers. Why am I here? I hate it. And, and I kept coming and I got to know people and then people started recognising me. They'd be like, you're all right and all of that stuff. And the meeting used to be up here before it moved down and obviously now it's back up here before. And it was before the refurbishment and, and I remember the time the first time I remember really laughing and softening. And I must have been, 8 months clean, 9 months clean, had a sponsor because I was trying to avoid sponsorship for a while. And in the toilets, because they were like the older toilets, like, and the taps used to stick. And so the water would just overrun and there'd be floods here. And I remember being in the toilets and there was more than one cubicle and there was, it was in the ladies' toilets and we were chatting and having a laugh. We were talking about the toilets and something stupid about letting it overflood and I remember belly laughing and as I belly laughed I started to cry because I hadn't had that for a long time. I hadn't laughed for a long time. Using every day was really difficult and it wasn't working anymore. It was not working. And that's a great memory. And it's great to be clean. And there was a few of us and we really, really giggled. And a few people that I'm still in contact with. One woman who I've been friends with for a long time, she's a year cleaner than me. I'm going to be 17 years in February, day at a time, God willing. I'll be 17 years and, I have also fought for my recovery, like I've fought and people on the committee and I did 3 years commitments here, like changing them and I remember when one of the committee members, when he first had, he had his baby and he'd bring his little one here and she'd be in the pram and, and all of that stuff and I was with a friend yesterday who's in recovery and her son is now 11 years old and he's never seen her use, you know what I mean? And that's what happens in recovery, all of those possibilities. It's really beautiful. And people like me who made the choice, I don't have the wish or the desire to be a parent, so I'm not, and I've pursued a life that's different, and the thing of coming here is you have choices. When I was using, I didn't have choices. Everything was scrambling. I was scrambling to have a life. I was scrambling to do something. And I worked throughout my using. Do you know what I mean? I worked. So I had a lot of denial. I was like, yeah, I'm all right. I can, carry on. And the risk of losing a job, I'd change jobs and all the rest of it. And it just got to a point where it was just me, using partner, hardly going out, needed to use to get to work, used at work, used when I got back from work. Just used. It was always using. It was painful. My skin hurt. I found it really hard to shower. It was painful. Everything just became painful. Early days, it was great. It was my solution to all my problems. I was uncomfortable. I hated life. I felt inadequate. I felt awkward. I didn't know how to do life. I just didn't know anything. I just wanted fun because I felt so uncomfortable in my own skin. I just wanted fun. So the first time I had a drink, it was great. And then, I was smoking and, and everything that involves being an addict. I loved it. It's great. And then it wasn't, quite quickly for me. By the time I was 17, I was in a lot of trouble. I'd got involved in gang culture and criminality, and I left school with no education, and I was just trying to desperately piece a life together. And I knew there was something wrong with me. When I went out raving, I did not use drugs like my mates. I just didn't. And it just was a bit obvious. But I was like, no, I'm not going to deal with that. It's fine. And I used for a long time, and I did kind of scrape some sort of life together. And I did all sorts of weird stuff. I was a cleaner, I worked as a cashier, I became a bus driver, I worked, I did voluntary work, and I did the voluntary work and got a job, and I worked, and I grafted, and a lot of the work I really enjoyed doing because because of my childhood, which I'm not going to get into, but there was a lot of stuff, there was a lot of difficulty, there was a lot of trauma, and I was just I just wanted to be of use to others. I think there's something about addicts, we're quite sensitive and in tune to things, and we have a sensitivity to the world around us, and that's kind of why we can't cope. We're very resourceful, and so I got into the line of work of helping others, and it was great and it was fine, but I worked hard, played hard, and I was either working really hard addictively or I was using drugs. That was it. That was my life. And then that stopped working, and then I had to keep changing jobs because I was scared of getting caught out, because then I started to try and cut corners. And, when I got pulled up by managers, I'd be like, don't you know who I am? I'm working really hard, I'm amazing. I wanted everyone to kind of appreciate who I was, just for my sheer existence. But I was constantly living with this sense of shame and inadequacy and awkwardness. Everything was about proving myself to the world. Everything was about proving myself to the world, and I cared about what everybody thought, and I thought I didn't, but I actually did. But, fast forward, I hit a rock bottom. I hit a few rock bottoms, and I knew I was in trouble. I was like, I need to put the gear down, and I couldn't. For the last 2 years of my using, I had to use every single day. I'd stopped seeing my family, completely avoiding them. I looked really ill. I was really thin. I was like a shade of grey, piling on clothes to kind of fill them out. It was horrible, and it was lonely, and I knew someone in recovery, and they said, yeah, come, and I was like, I don't know, and they were like, yes, but it's great, I think you get a lot out of it, but, they don't get put off because they hold hands at the end and say a prayer. And I was like, what, you bonkers? But what had happened before that, and he did take me to a meeting, but I sought out a therapist. And I remember starting to unpack stuff, and basically I'd used and I'd turned up for this therapy session, and I'd used gear, I'd used heroin, and I was there, and she had a go at me, and she gave me a real right bollocking. She said, how dare you come here when you've high, it's disrespectful to this space, and you can never do that again because I'll stop my sessions with you. And I was like, well, this is what I'm struggling with. What's wrong with you? And she said, you need to get clean because I'm not going to be able to get to the stuff that you need to get to. And she suggested NA. And at this point, I was trying to I'd actually stopped doing the degree. I was trying to do a social work degree, and I was doing part-time work in drug services. As a drugs worker, so yeah, and I was like, yeah, I know about that. I'm not an addict. You're mad. What? And she was like, yeah, you are. And for a long time, I'd been hiding behind my partner. I was really good at manipulating and kind of sitting in the background, and it wasn't so obvious it was me. It was him. It wasn't me. And I was like, oh. Anyway, I went to this meeting. And this person was living in Nottingham, and I drove up there. I tried so many kind of detoxes and trying to get clean at home, and the inevitable happened. You're just clinging on for dear life for 3-4 days, and then and then it gets really painful, and then it's and I'd go and use again, and I was like, I can't go through this again. went to this meeting, and my partner at the time had gone away to his sister's who was living abroad to get clean there. I don't know why he thought that was logical, and I don't know why I thought it was logical for me to do it at home on my own, but there you have it. And I went to a meeting and I was terrified. I remember looking at the floor for the whole entire time, and the only thing I heard in that meeting was from How It Works: 1 is too many and 1,000 never enough. And when I heard that, like, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and I was like, oh my God, like, literally that was it. That was that place I was living in between of like 1 is too many, 1,000 never enough. And it was like somebody had sucker punched me, literally. And I just understood everything in that moment. Don't remember the rest of the meeting, but I went to another one and I went to another one, and that's where my journey started. I didn't stay clean straight away. I pretended I was clean for a little while, got my 30, 60 and 90-day curing, and I chose to use another drug of my choice, which was alcohol, and I thought that was all right. I thought, you know, we're all mad, you don't know what you're talking about. And then I found myself standing waiting for a dealer to get crack and heroin again, and I was like, I don't want to be here. I knew I didn't want to be there, but I was there anyway. I kept looking at the tube station. I was on this estate, and I kept looking at the tube station because it wasn't too far from where I was stood, and I was like, I need to just get on that tube. I just need to go home. And I couldn't. I waited for about 3 hours. I scored, I went home, I cried, and I was like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Went to a meeting on that Sunday. That was a Friday night. Went to a meeting on that Sunday, and I shared a newcomer's time. And it was where you could smoke in the meetings then. And I remember sitting on the smoker's side. I don't know why they had a smoker's side. The whole room filled up with cigarette smoke. It was so stupid. But I sat on the smoker's side and I was smoking. I was like, and I was like crying, listening to everyone. It was horrible. It was so horrible. And somebody at the end of the meeting, there was a literal commitment, and somebody put me forward for it. I wanted to kill him. I was like, what? But I had so much pride. I took the commitment. I was like, I can't say no. And I took the commitment, and I turned up every Sunday, and I did that literature, and I did it obsessively and neurotically, and that committee held me. And there's only one person I'm in touch with on that committee, and I saw him what day is it? Friday. I saw him last night, and he's now clean, I don't know, I don't even know, 5-6 years, and at that time he was cleaner than me. And I don't know there's one other person who's on that committee who's still around, but he does meetings locally because he's got a long-term illness that he has to deal with, so he doesn't kind of like go far and wide anymore. But they held me. Do you know what I mean? We'd go for coffee afterwards, we'd go to the secretary's house during the week, and we'd just drink loads of pots of tea and smoking loads of cigarettes and eating loads of chocolate and loads of biscuits, and I'd be crying and I'd be like, oh my God, and they'd be like, you need to get a sponsor and work the steps and da-da-da, and I was like, no, I ain't doing none of that. No. Now you're just pushing it a little bit too far. And I got to 6 months and I started going mad, and I kid you not, when I say I was going mad, I was going mad. I was anxious, I was terrified, fear that I cannot explain to you, and I was like, what is wrong with me? Like, what? This isn't normal. And they were like, work the steps, you need to work the steps. And I was like, okay, got a sponsor. And I went through like 4 sponsors in like 3 months. And part of my story has been like I've had a lot of resistance. I'm very defiant still to this day. That hasn't changed. But I did do the step work. I did stay stuck in a step 4 for a number of years. I'm not going to go into how long that was. A few people in here who've heard that before. And it was painful. It got to the point where I was just walking around as a walking resentment, and I was thinking, I'm all right, I don't need to be here. It's fine. Maybe I can just stop coming to recovery. I'll be all right. Maybe I don't need to be here. But I was terrified enough still of using. And then I was going to this meeting, and I asked my sponsor, the sponsor I've got now, and I said, listen, you take me through the steps. And she looked at me, she laughed. And this is a woman I kind of really loved and admired and hated at the same time. And I hated her because she was really working the steps, right? And I hated her because she was just like, she always had something really good to say. And she was just like, I was just like, oh, but kind of wanted what she had. And I was like, anyway, I asked her, despite myself and all my judgment, because when I say I asked her, admiring her and really thinking she's amazing and hating her at the same time, I asked her to be my sponsor with that feeling in me, but I still asked her. And she laughed at me and she said, right, are you willing to go to any levels? So I was like, listen, love, I've been around for 8 years, of course I am. And she said, all right then, call me every day for 30 days. And I nearly fell off the bench. And I was like, what? Call me every day for 30 days. And I had to go right back to the beginning, and I had to call her every day for 30 days. And what that gave me, and I didn't do that with any of my previous sponsors, but what that gave me was building a relationship, of allowing her to get to know me and allowing myself to get to know her. And she just gave me these, and it was just a really simple action of taking responsibility for myself. A really simple task of taking responsibility for myself. Because I don't know about any of you lot, as an addict, I don't want to take responsibility for myself. I want everyone else to fix it. It's your problem. I need somebody to kind of like leech myself on or take hostage, and you're going to solve my problems for me, with me. And it was just like a really, really, really simple lesson in that. And like, I remember once I was really busy with some stuff, and I was like, look, I texted her and I said, look, I can't call you because I've got loads to do. And she goes, oh, you could have phoned me and told me that. I was like, what? So I called her and I was like, what does that mean? And she goes, you could have just called me and told me that. I asked you to call me every day for 30 days. And I was like, are you mad? And on one level, yeah, that's really, I could be justified in like, well, I got in contact with you. But on another level, because I had a chat with her about it, and I said, I get something in this, but I don't get what I get. And through talking it through with her, what I realised was I don't know how to hold boundaries. And what I mean by that is I can get on the phone to somebody, or I can get involved with something, or I can do something, and I will get caught up and not take care of what I need to take care of. So how do I take responsibility? By doing something that I've committed to, and then at the same time be like, look, I'm doing this because I've said it, but I've got this to do, so I've got to go now. I didn't know how to do that, right? I did not know how to kind of understand that I've got all the... I didn't know structure, I didn't understand it, I didn't understand boundaries, I didn't understand about what commitment and responsibility actually means. It's the ability to respond to life, and commitment to that is like taking do you know what I mean? Like being able to do things, but knowing what you can manage and what you can't manage. Because as an addict, and it says in our step 1, powerless over our addiction, our lives became unmanageable. I was unmanageable before I even was powerless over drugs, trust me. I'm just an addict. So my best thinking was unmanageable around anything. And I can give the story about, that's because of my family and what I grew up in and all that. My family's, yes, very dysfunctional and they drive me mad, but I love them and they are who they are, right? But also, it's like I find life difficult. And that's why drugs are my solution. So I am unmanageable in my thinking in the first place. And then I'm powerless over my addiction, and I'm even more unmanageable afterwards. I'm just unmanageable. So it taught me a really, really strong lesson. So why am I saying this? I don't know why I'm saying this. I'm saying that the power of being in these rooms and the group experience and talking stuff through. So I don't know about you, I grew up in a family, and I think it's probably prevalent in our society anyway, is that you don't talk. You don't really talk about your feelings, you don't share your secrets, you just kind of keep it all under the bonnet, you don't really kind of expose yourself. Everybody's got a facade, like, show this is who I am. But who are you really? You know what I mean? Like, we don't do that. That level of, like, you know, vulnerability, courage, bravery. Coming through that door into an NA meeting is the biggest act of bravery and courage a person can take. Honestly. I've seen people die from this disease. I've known people who've relapsed and not come back and had horrendous deaths. I've seen people get clean and die clean because that's just life. You know. So basically, I've grown up in recovery and understanding that unmanageability, you know, coming to believe in the power greater than myself. And for me, having a higher power is really, really important. You know, I was thinking about, you know, because I was going to say I don't want to record the share. And I remember 2 years clean, I went to Thailand on my own, 17 days. I was on a liveaboard for a week. And which is basically you live on a boat for a week and you go diving around anyway. And it was great, it was lovely, and I'd kind of made a note of like, I can do these meetings in Thailand, there's some in Bangkok, there's some here, and I'd planned this whole trip of going to different places. And I didn't go to any of the meetings, basically, which wasn't a good idea. But I had my little mini basic text, and I had shares on an iPod, which tells you also how old I am. But anyway, I had my little iPod, and it was like I was in this jungle, basically, like this national park, which was basically a jungle, and I had these bites, and they were really painful, and I woke up in the middle of the night one night, and I thought I was going to die. I convinced myself I was going to die, and I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I thought, I know what I'm going to do. Like, the reception for this place where I was staying was basically a massive cabin, but it also had a bar in it, and I thought, I know what I'm going to do. If I'm going to die, I'm going to go and get pissed. That's what I'm going to do. If I'm going to go out, I'm going to go out in style. And then I was like, no, that's not a good idea. And I'm pacing in this effing cabin. I've been told not to swear because I swear a lot. I had a text from someone saying, don't swear, because it's a bit of a problem with the recordings. I'm really struggling here, trust me. And I was pacing up and down. I was like, oh my God. And I was like, right, basic text. So I read the Just for Today chapter, and I was like, oh my God. And I listened to the shares, and those shares saved my bacon. And literally on my knees with my head on the floor saying, God, please help me. Just as I did when I got hit my rock bottom, and calling out to something that I didn't really believe in. And I have a complicated relationship with my higher power. And in that moment, I was like, please don't use here in Thailand. Do not do it. Do not do it. You cannot do it. And I listened to a couple of shares, and they were funny, and I started laughing, and I thought, you effing, like that, you know, like, you're going to be all right. And I stayed up all night listening to shares. I listened to like 3 40-minute one, a couple of 15-minute one, another one. And early hours of the morning, I was like, I'm all right. Got out of the cabin, had a cigarette, and I thought, oh my God, I made it. I didn't drink, I made it. And I know that people in this room will know how important that is. Like, I know you know how important that is. And I thought, right, okay. Got through the holiday, got back. So I know how important all these things are that we do. Do you know what I mean? When I'm in trouble, I pick up the phone. When I'm in trouble, I get to a meeting. I'm not going to go through all the steps because I'm not that person. I have worked the steps, and I'm working another lot of steps at the moment. The steps, like, you know, Desmond was saying, like, that's where the works happen for me. Like, you know, on a profound level, that's where the works happen for me. I understand my problem. I understand why I used. I put the drugs down, and I understand even more, like, how important this program is for me, because I will go bonkers very quickly. Because it lives in my thinking, and it manifests everywhere else. I will get obsessive about anything, just like you were saying, like lust. I was addicted to porn for my first year, and it was painful, and it brought me to my knees. It was awful, like, it was absolutely horrendous. I could not sit with my feelings. It's come out in food, as you were saying, in really, really unhealthy, toxic, dynamic relationships. I can tell you, my God. It's come out in spending. Like all sorts of places, it really has. And I've used this program in all those areas to right-size myself and get a handle on it. And I haven't used. And the bottom line of it is, whatever your gear is and wherever your addiction goes, as long as you don't use, because of course it's not about drugs for me today. It isn't, but it will be. If I don't have a handle on everything else, it will be about drugs for me again. Absolutely, categorically, it will. You know, I can still have using dreams and wake up and be like, oh my God, I think I used last night. Oh my God, did I use? And then I have to kind of like think about my whole day. And I'm like, oh no, I haven't. So of course it can be all of that for me. You know, the steps that I'm doing at the moment, it's all about relationships. It's about relationship with self, my family, looking at the dynamics of what I grew up with and what I've grown up with. I've done a lot of work outside of recovery. That's been, from this addict, that's been really important for me to get a handle on. You know, so it's like the work never stops. There's no end game here, people. There isn't. But I have a really good life. Like, I have beautiful friends in my life. And, you know, thinking about Christmas, like, this was probably Christmas Day was probably one of the best Christmases I've had. It was really lovely, really good food, and we had a lot of laughs and jokes, and you know, and it was really, really lovely, and it was difficult. You know, I've got 2 older parents who've been quite ill. My dad's in a care home now. You know, I made my amends to them, and it was really beautiful and really powerful. And, you know, through recovery and through the years, my relationship with him has changed. And my dad got diagnosed with Alzheimer's a number of years ago, and that was difficult. And he's in a care home now. My mum's had, you know, lung cancer and whatnot. She's all right, she's fine, but it's like, you know, it's just something that you end up dealing with. You know, you get older, you're around for a number of years, and your parents get older, you just have to deal with stuff. Do you know what I mean? It's not like, oh my God, it is what it is, it's just life. But the important thing is that I turn up and I'm there for them. And the important thing is that I've got a way of functioning within a dysfunctional family. My family is quite dysfunctional. But what recovery's given me, like, doing those amends was one thing, you know, around my behaviour and my addiction, and they were really forgiving, my parents, they were really lovely. But the other thing that it kind of gave me the opportunity to really see them. Like, my parents have got their faults, right? I'm not going to lie to you. So is my brother, so is my sister, so is my extended family, whatever. But what it gave me the capacity for was great compassion for them. And it gave me the capacity for great compassion for them, their story and their trauma. Because they've been through a lot, my parents. The same for my brother. And I you know, there's like historical sort of trauma in my family. And so I have the ability, because of the stuff I do here, to be able to extend compassion and understanding to them. And that doesn't mean that I just accept everything, because I don't. And I do have boundaries. Like, coming back to the thing that I said before, I do have boundaries. Sometimes the boundaries aren't talked about, I just practice them, because I don't need to tell everyone, look, I'm holding a boundary here, you can't cross this line. Do you know what I mean? It's not that kind of stuff. It's just that I'm just like, no, actually, I'm not gonna do that, Mum. Why not? Because it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right because of this. Or, yeah, all right, I'll do that, but, you know, that's not really my responsibility. Do you know what I mean? It's like about how I've learnt here how to have the conversations. I've learnt here how to approach things. It's not about avoiding saying what needs to be said. And I am the person who kind of just puts everything on the floor. I'm like, you know, this Christmas was beautiful, and then the tension started building, and then the criticism started flying out sideways. And it was like, I could feel it brewing. I was like, oh my God, get me out of this house, because I'm going to kill someone. And then, like, my mum's got one story, my brother's got another story, and I'm like, who's telling the truth? I don't know who's telling the truth. It's all that gear, like, do you know what I mean? Everyone flings stuff everywhere, and it's a nightmare. So I just waited, sat there, and I was like, don't be arrogant, Arindo. In my head, I'm saying, don't be arrogant, and don't try and be right. Don't try and be right. Don't try and be right. So I just started up the conversation with both of them present, so neither one of them could lie. They were very uncomfortable. Nobody said anything. There was silence. So what my family do, they drop bombs in, right? Because they want everybody on side against the other person. But then when you start having the conversation openly, honestly, in front of everyone, bums start twitching. Nobody wants to say anything. Or all of a sudden they've got going to the other room because they're really busy. Something needs to be done. It's like no. So I just called it out, and I called it out as kindly as I could. And I called it out and I said, look, this has got to stop. I understand you may have forgotten. I understand you may have misheard what was said. Right? Because I'm not going to accuse them of lying, because that's when I want to be right. And I can be grandiose with my being right. I'm just basically self-righteous, and it's just really horrible to witness. So I was like, right. Anyway, we made a plan. Long story short, I'm not going to go into it because it's like, you don't need to know it and you won't get it. It would just be really boring. But basically, we made a plan. This is how we're going to like manage a few things in my family and stuff, around my mum's care, around my dad's care, and around stuff. Right, okay, and this is my responsibility, and there's things that I need to do as well, and I'm included in that. Do you know what I mean? It's not like I'm not. I'm part of that family, and I'm taking on stuff. But what I won't do anymore is get into the game. I won't get into the drama, and I won't get into the crisis. My family only know how to function in crisis and drama, which is what I learned. I only knew crisis and drama, and I still go there. I still create crisis. I still create the problem outside of myself. And then I have to be like, oh, hold on a minute. Is it me? Is it me? Is this real? Is this not real? What's going on? And there's always an element of something being real, but it's like it always comes back to me. Where am I taking responsibility, and how do I change things? Because I am powerless over people, places and things. And when I accept that, I am no longer powerless over people, places and things, because I take responsibility and I make the changes that I need to make. I ain't the same, and I don't get it right. And I did spill out a little bit with my mum. That's the truth. She was upset, I was upset. We both had a cry. And it was like, how do I have to... I need to now right-size this. I made my amends immediately, promptly, as we do in step 10s. And I meditated. I had to go and sit in another room. And I had to meditate because I thought, how can I help and be of use to my family without getting into the drama, without getting into self-righteous indignation? Because it hurts me to be in my family sometimes and to be around that dynamic. It's really, really painful to see because I want them to change. Because I want them to be happy. They're not happy people. That's the truth. The truth of it is they just want to be happy, just like we do. But we all got recovery. And I can't take responsibility for them. Only they can take responsibility for themselves, but I can't force it on them. And it is painful to watch them in their pain. They all have physical ailments. You know, they struggle. And there's a lot of stuff that they're not happy with. So, you know, of course, my mum's desperate for me to be around because she's lonely. My dad's in a care home. It's not what she expected for her life in old age. What she expected, she's going to finally get my dad away from working like addictively and have like her retirement with some joy, and then my dad gets Alzheimer's. She hasn't got that she's been robbed of that. And my mum wasn't listened to, you know, she's a woman, she, you know, it's like she comes from a particular generation. I mean, it still exists in our generation, but still, you know, it's like there was a lot of things, choices that she didn't have. And so I have to extend a hand of compassion. And I have to be like, how do I keep boundaries? And all of this I've learnt here. It's not me, it's here. It's all of you who share your experience in meetings where I get perspective and I get clarity. It's doing the step work, it's doing the outside work. Because by being here, and yes, I did therapy before I got into recovery, but then by being clean and staying clean, the real work that I really needed to do in therapy could happen. It wasn't going to happen otherwise, forget it. I was always going to be a victim, it's always going to be self-pity, it was always somebody else's problem, not mine. And that's not to say that things that happened to me when I was young were okay, because they weren't. And I've right-sized that stuff. I know that responsibility is somebody else's. My dad was a violent man. It's just the reality of what it was. He was a violent man. And because of that, I can also, you know, extend compassion to my mum and be like, you know, because my brother and sister could get into this thing and I'm not, yeah, but dad was quite difficult. Let's not forget. But I love him. And I saw him 2 days ago and I sat with him in the care home and I cut his nails and I held his hand and we had a chat and it was lovely. He didn't know who I am. He doesn't know who I am. He doesn't know he's got kids. He doesn't know I'm his daughter. But it was really lovely to spend that time with him. It was really lovely just to look at him and feed him. Fed him his dinner. Fed him his dessert. I couldn't have done that if I wasn't clean. It would never have happened. I wouldn't be here. I'd be dead, is the reality of it. The only reason I've got into my 40s is because I came into recovery. It's an inside job. It really, really is. If you're willing to interrogate yourself through the step work, you've got a good life. You can have some emotional balance, because that's what it is for me. It's about, emotional sobriety. And what I mean by that is emotional clarity. Having clarity on my emotions, where I am, how I feel, how I behave in the world. Because I can do a good talk here. Yeah, great, I've done the steps, do service, blah, blah, blah. I've got sponsees and I've got sponsees. So what? It's what I do. It's part of recovery. I love it. It's amazing. I learn a lot from my sponsees. But it's how I carry it in all my affairs, which is what step 12 is. Carrying the message to a newcomer. Practicing these principles in all my affairs, because every single step has a principle. A couple of them I think have got more than one principle. You know what I mean? The 12 traditions. I love the traditions. It's how I've known how to work in a group, function in groups at work, at uni. I'm at uni. I left school with no GCSEs and I'm doing a degree at the age of 47. It's terrifying, but I love it. Do you know what I mean? I've got good friends in recovery, outside of recovery. I've got a relationship with my family. There's still problems around it, but it is what it is. I've probably gone on too long. I've got 5 minutes, bloody hell. I don't really know what to finish on, other than recovery is layers. You come in, you get clean, and then you go through layers, I think the most important thing for me is understanding my defects of character when I did step 4 and then 6 and 7, because it's the 6 and 7 that I have to really work on, and I get the opportunity to do that in step 10. I don't do it formally as much as I used to, but I do when I need to. When something isn't shifting, I'm like, right, I need to write it down, I need to pin it down, I need to look at it, I need to reflect on it, I need to see what's going on. Most of the time I can kind of do it moment by moment as I'm in it. And because I've done another set of steps now and I'm near the end of those, like, I can see how, you know, it's that thing of, like, people say layer of onions, do you know, the layers, you know, you take one layer off, next layer off, next layer off, and it is that. It's like, you know, in a weird kind of way, I've kind of elevated. I definitely feel like, you know, this being a spiritual program has really enabled me to kind of step up and above and beyond myself, but also go deeper and deeper into my heart and my soul. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's very much how the work is for me, and I definitely feel like I've gone deeper into who I am, how I can counteract addiction and not let this stuff present itself in all areas of my life, even though it does. It does, you know, being an addict is just everywhere in my life because of my thinking and how I manage life. And I think for me, the core of it is what it's as it is in our book. It's like service, sponsorship, steps, and oh my God, what's the other one? And higher power, right? And without my higher power, I've got nothing. There's been moments when I've not been able to phone anyone. There's been moments when I've not been able to get my sponsor. There's been moments when I'm like, what do I do? And I've had to... The first time I got money, you know, people would be like, yeah, I'll get on my knees and pray and all that. I'm like, yeah, right, whatever. I ain't doing that. You're mad. When I get hit step 7, I tell you, I hit my knees. I hit my knees. Because was I willing? Was I ready to let go of my shortcomings? And they haven't gone. They're still there. But I don't have to act on them anymore. It's a bit like what you were saying before, do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I get lustful, but I just don't act on it. There's loads of things that that my defects come up, but I don't act on it. Sometimes I take things personal, and sometimes I can get a bit self-righteous, but on the whole, like, I've got enough in the tank to pull it back. You know what I mean? Because those defects are the things that are going to get me into trouble. You know, I'm a big... I'm a person for, like, justice. I cannot stand injustice. But when that's wrong-sided, mate, my God, I'm just this angry, crazy... do you know what I mean? Like, every asset I have will turn into a defect. If the defect is right size, I'm in my assets. You know, and that's kind of like where I, you know, work my program on a daily basis. Those defects, 6 and 7. If I keep that at the forefront of my mind, a higher power and doing all the things that are required, service, sponsorship, steps. I've got a really good life. I cannot tell you how good it is. It's just beautiful. I'm at peace most of the time. I'm at ease most of the time. And when I'm not, I'm like, it's okay. I don't give myself a hard time. I have compassion, and it's taken me years to build compassion. Years. I was like, oh my God, I'm not doing something. Am I praying? Am I meditating? Am I, batting myself, quick, pick up the steps. I've got to do this. And recovery became painful. I've learnt compassion. Easy does it. Take it with ease, wear it lightly, but do the work rigorously. That's what I do know. I've got what I've got because of recovery, not because of myself, and because of a higher power. And I'm really, really grateful. And if you're new around, back from a relapse, please stick around. Please. You know, if you're new around, stick around. The miracle will happen. And for those who've been around longer, stay here, because people need you. Do you know what I mean? We need each other. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.